Hello, Year 5, Miss Ryan here. I hope you are all well. Well done to all of you that sent in your work for yesterday's lesson with compound sentences, and now we're going to change our sentence type to complex sentences. So today we're going to be recapping how to write complex sentences. Right, let's get into it. Okay, so this is the starter task for this lesson. What I would like you to do is punctuate these sentences. Now, these sentences have no punctuation in whatsoever. What I would like you to do is I'd like you to write down these sentences and correctly punctuate them for me. So pause the video here, it's now your turn. Okay, welcome back. Hope you've had some time to punctuate these sentences, and now it's time to check through them. So the first one was missing the capital letter and the full stop. The second one, again, missing the capital letter, the comma for the expanded noun phrase, and the full stop. Third was missing the capital letter full stop and the comma after the fronted adverbial all of a sudden. The fourth one, Mercury is the closest planet to the sun and Neptune is the furthest, capital letter, full stop, and also a capital letter for Neptune. And the fifth one, capital letter and full stop. Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to check through those, and now it's time to move on. So today we are going to learn how to use complex sentences, and again, it's to make our writing even more interesting. So today's key vocabulary is complex sentences, subordinating conjunctions, main clause, and subordinating clauses. So we are going to be looking at how to use complex sentences. However, what is a complex sentence? I wonder if you can remember for me. So pause the video here and have a think about that question. Okay, welcome back. Hope you've had some time to think about that question, and now it's my turn to explain what a complex sentence is. Now, it is a sentence made up of two clauses, a main clause and a subordinating clause, which has a subordinating conjunction. And there is another acronym to help remember some of the most used subordinating conjunctions, but these aren't all of them, but these are just some of the most used ones. So it's I saw a wubbub, and the conjunctions are if, since, as, when, although, while, after, before, until, and because. Now a main clause makes sense by itself. The dog barked. It's surrounding a singular verb in this one. A subordinating clause does not make sense by itself when it was angry, or when what was angry. But if you put both parts of the sentence together, it does make sense. The dog barked when it was angry. When it was angry, the dog barked. The subordinate clause can come at the start or the end of a sentence. So you can put the subordinate clause at the beginning of the sentence, but we need to separate it with a comma, or it can go at the end of the sentence. And if it goes at the end of the sentence, you don't then need a comma. So I would suggest maybe writing down the acronym or the subordinating conjunctions, and maybe some key information from here if you feel like you need it. Now, using what I've just learned or recapped, I'm going to create a complex sentence about an alien. So, although the alien was alone, comma, it was never sad. It was never sad, although the alien was alone. Like I said before, the subordinate clause can come at the start or the end of the sentence. And if it's at the start of a sentence, it needs a comma after it. So that although the alien was alone, comma. If it's at the end, it doesn't need one before it. And I've used the subordinate conjunction, although. I now want you to create a complex sentence about a planet. Now think of a simple sentence about a planet or the planets or the solar system as a whole. Then I want you to add some extra information with a subordinate clause using a subordinate conjunction. So here's my example. I've said, Earth is the only planet with living creatures because it has the perfect living conditions. Then I've put the subordinate clause at the start because it has the perfect living conditions, comma, Earth is the only planet with living creatures. So pause the video here and have a think about your own sentence about a planet or the planets. Okay, welcome back. Hope you've had some time to think about a sentence about the planets, and let's move on. Now, I want to see which way these two clauses could go and which one is the main clause and which one's subordinate. So now I can already see that the first sentence, although the night is dark, is a subordinate clause because it starts with one of my subordinating conjunctions, although. The moon lights up the sky is a main clause because that makes sense by itself. Now, I want to think about which way the main clause and the subordinate clause could go. So I could have it like this. So I could have, although the night is dark, the moon lights up the sky. So although the night is dark, comma, because my subordinate clause is at the start, the main clause is at the end with a full stop. Or I could have, the moon lights up the sky, although the night is dark. I don't need a comma after the main clause, it will just carry on with a subordinating clause with although the night is dark. So like I said before, you can have the main clause either at the start or the end of the sentence and it would still make sense. However, if your subordinate clause is at the start of the sentence, you need to make sure that after the subordinate clause, you have a comma. Bob Lucas has created a complex sentence about space. Is this complex sentence punctuated correctly? As the ISS orbited Earth, he wondered if other life forms existed in space. Pause the video here and have a think about that question for me. Now, hopefully you've had some time to think about that question for me, and this is what it should look like. It should be, as the ISS orbited Earth, he wondered if other life forms existed in space. Now, it should be a comma after the clause, not the conjunction. Remember that for me when we're looking at this next piece. Now, Bob Lucas has created another complex sentence about space. Is this complex sentence punctuated correctly? When in deep, dark space, I can see the stars twinkle. Pause the video here and have another think for me. Welcome back. Hope you've had some time to think about that question. Now, you might notice that he has got his subordinating conjunction at the start, which is when, but then he has deep, dark space. Now, what is an adjective and a noun? That's an expanded noun phrase. And when we put adjectives in a list, we need to separate them with a comma. So what it should be this. When in deep, dark space, so deep, comma, dark space, comma, after the subordinate clause, then we're going into the main clause now. I can see the stars twinkle. This is what it would look like if the subordinate clause was at the end and the main clause was at the start. So it would be, I can see the stars twinkle when in deep, dark space. We're still including that comma for the expanded noun phrase because we need to separate those adjectives with a comma. Okay, now let's move on. Okay, now I would like you to write a complex sentence about Bob Lucas, or an astronaut, space, planets, stars, aliens, or moons. So this is my example. So I've written, after the sun sets, the moon rises. I've used my subordinate conjunction after. Now I'm looking to the right hand side and I'm seeing if I could maybe change this or enhance it in any way. So I could see if I could use a different subordinating conjunction for that sentence, or I could enhance it by using adjectives. So here's my new sentence. So, when the sun sets, the bright white moon rises. So I've changed the subordinating conjunction and I've included two adjectives to describe the moon. I'd like you to pause the video here and try and write your own complex sentence about space, including obviously your subordinating conjunctions. Pause the video here, it's now your turn. Hope you've had some time to write down a sentence, and now let's move on. Now I'd like to check your knowledge of complex sentence punctuation on Kahoot. I would like you to type that web URL into your search browser, or you could type in Kahoot into Google, then use that pin to get into the game. Make sure when entering the game you put your first name and your class for me, and you have until the 21st of January 2021 to complete it, and then I will be announcing those who are at the top of the leaderboard and have won. So I can't wait to see all of that, and you have until the 21st of January to complete that quiz for me. Okay, so when you go into your web browser, you type in Kahoot, click on the first link, you should come up with this screen here. Then you type in the game pin, which is this, and click enter. It should then take you to this part of the site, which is where you put in your nickname, which I've asked you to put your first name and then your class, and then you would click OK, go, and then you would answer the 10 questions. So like I said, you've got until the 21st of January to complete this. I can't wait to see who's at the top of the leaderboard. There are Dojo points up for grabs. So now on to the Chili challenges. So Chili 1, I need you to identify the main clause and subordinate clause in the sentences. So that is on the next slide. And what I would need you to do is I need you to write down the sentences and maybe write the main clause in red and the subordinate clause in blue. Then once you've done that, I'd like you to write 2 complex sentences of your own. So to Chili 2, I'd like you to write down 3 different complex sentences and then change the order of the clauses so you could use a different colour for each one. And then Chili 3, I'd like you to do Chili 2. And then I want you to reflect on the sentences written. Could you enhance them? Could you make them any better? And then I want you to prove or disprove this statement. The main clause in a complex sentence is always the second part of the sentence. I want you to write a sentence, obviously, or use a sentence you've written to support this argument. Now, on the next slide will be the sentences that Chili 1 you need to write down for your identifying the different clauses in the sentence. So here is Chili 1's sentences. And that is everything for today's lesson. Hope you remembered how to write complex sentences using those tricky subordinating conjunctions to create our subordinating clauses. I can't wait to see all the sentences you sent into our Year 5 email, and I will see you tomorrow for tomorrow's English lesson. Stay safe. Bye.